Software developers are a class of intelligent people. They wrote code to make Google, and now the Google itself is helping them to write code. According to the 2021 developer survey by Stackoverflow, 90% developers use Google when they are stuck somewhere in coding, and 80% of them hit Stackoverflow alone. And 1 out of every 4 developers copy something within 5 minutes of hitting the page. Stackoverflow says it is knowledge reuse, but IT managers say it is a bad programming practice and resulting in a big technical debt.
Copy pasting is a common practice in software development, and it leads to technical debt if not done responsibly. First thing it does, it causes code duplication, and that is a direct violation of DRY principle, which stands for don't repeat yourself, and which is a fundamental concept in software development to reduce code duplication. This can make it difficult to maintain and update the code, as developers need to track down and update all copies of the code whenever a change is needed. So if the code is modified at one place but not at other places, then it makes the code inconsistent. And this problem becomes common when you have new developers in your team, because new developers are new to the code, so they might not even know that the code they're fixing is duplicated. So they may fix it at one place and may totally miss it at other places. Sometimes code has hidden dependencies and assumptions that create issues later on. Sometimes code is written for a different context, but it is copied for a different scene. The code may come from a different part of the system and with different inputs and outputs, and that may require thorough refactoring before it is used. Let me give you a very classic example here. Assume you are told to write a story on Thirsty Sparrow. Now, because we all know about the story of Thirsty Crow, so you will immediately think of the story of a Thirsty Crow. Here, you cannot just replace crow with a sparrow to create your new story, because a sparrow cannot pick as big pebbles as a crow can. So, for Thirsty Sparrow, you need a smaller picture, smaller pebbles, meaning you need a thorough refactoring of the story before you reuse it.
90% of the problems that a developer may face during development have already been solved on Stackoverflow. If the code doesn't compile or there is a runtime error, then the first default step by developers is to copy the error message and paste it in Google. According to 2020 developer survey by Stackoverflow, approximately 20 to 25 million professional developers visit Stackoverflow every month. Surprisingly, 1 out of every 4 users copies something within 5 minutes of hitting the page, and this makes approximately 2 million copies in a day. This copy and paste programming undoubtedly saves several hours of coding time, but it brings in several other sort of problems that sometimes put a question mark on the credibility of the whole software and the corporation.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
Nissan is a big automobile manufacturer. While developing Nissan Connect EV app for its Nissan Leaf car, one of its iOS developers encountered a problem while getting location access from the user. As by default developers do, the developer Googled it and landed on the Stackoverflow. The developer copied the code from accepted answer, but forgot to replace the placeholder text. Surprisingly, app cleared all code reviews, QA checks, and made all the way to the App Store. When Scott Helme, a security consultant from UK, received the update, he discovered that a settings menu in the app was displaying description text. The spirit of Stackoverflow is coders helping coders. That was copy-pasted from Stackoverflow, and the developer forgot to replace it.
By now, the term Y2K has become a household phrase, and residents' reactions to the Millennium Bug are as varied as the individuals themselves.
In the 90s, when the whole world was struggling to develop a fix for Y2K bug, Bruce Dickens, a software developer from USA, figured out that using a simple programming trick called windowing can quickly solve the monster bug. Windowing was a programming trick where programmers chose a pivot year. The pivot year was calculated from the age of the corporation, means if it didn't have records older than 80 years in the year 2000, then they choose 20 as a pivot year. Then it was a simple if condition, means if year value is greater than 20, then it read it in 19s, and if year value is less than 20, then it read it in 2000s. This strategy was an instant hit and copied and pasted by 70% of the companies. But during this copy-paste, majority of developers forgot or did not care to replace the pivot year 20. And as the clock ticked to 1st of January 2021, parking meters in New York stopped all of a sudden. Several cash registers crashed and WWE 2K20, a professional wrestling game, stopped working. This was the biggest technical debt left by developers of 19s to be paid by developers of 20s.
I would especially advise developers to avoid copy pasting as much as possible, because when you do it in habit, then your algorithmic and problem solving skills tend to decline, because you leave thinking out of the box and don't find a solution to a problem on your own and tend to deploy ready-made solutions all the time. So this in turn decreases your debugging skills, because if code doesn't run and if you don't understand it, then again you have to find a ready-made solution, because it may be harder for you to understand the code, so it is harder to debug it. And when it is time to move on to a new job, and when interviewers assess you for your algorithmic and problem solving skills, then you are just blank. So it is harmful for your career as well, and when patches are applied to fix a problem, then it increases technical debt in turn.
Copy and paste is awfully awesome feature. It is almost impossible to survive without it. Whether it is a junior, intermediate, or senior developer, whether it is a small software development company or an enterprise, copy-paste programming and the resulting technical debt is everywhere.